Okay, you're welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us. Let's go straight to our first interview for the day. Nana Kwadwo Jantuah, broadcaster, media analyst, personal friend of mine. And full disclosure, Nana Jantuah has had a stint with GH News now before. Yes, just full disclosure, so you know. But yes, I'm very delighted to be speaking with you, friend whom I haven't seen in many years. Nana Kwadwo Jantuah. Nana, welcome
Yes,
to
sir.
Culture TV, Radio Culture.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Great,
Thank you so
great,
much.
great,
And
great.
Nana, yeah,
Yep.
ha kasa bi Ghana for tibia you can wahasi.
Okay.
Brofo ne kwa na se twi so pese ba. Please feel free. Say dagbani fra de tibia say entia say you baby no acha yase. But as the
Right.
spirit leaded. Nana, thank you so much. Okay, so today we're here to discuss press freedom. We said press and human rights under John Mahama. I would really want to focus on press freedom, to be honest with you. I think it's very much connected. But I want us to focus more on press freedom. And thank you again for joining us for this. Nana, so far, it's not even been a year yet. But
Yes.
what do you see under John Mahama Part 2?
I want to first of all thank you very much for this opportunity. It's always delight to hear from you. And by the way, to our viewers, Kwesi was very instrumental in Ghana, and we still miss his inputs. And so we are wishing that one of these days we'll miss you again. So perhaps maybe you also give us the hearing from wherever you are when we begin full activation back on radio again, perhaps.
Yebeka no wasem because all of a sudden you just saw that you were like, I'm like, hey, hold on, what's going on there? You know, we will talk about that. We will talk about that. Nana, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes. So back to your question, it's a very critical question you asked. Press freedom under John Dramani Mahama. Of course, we all know that we are celebrating 1 year when Ghanaians marched to exercise their franchise. And I remember I was in Accra, so unfortunately I was not able to vote. However, I was happy with the outcome of the elections because, it was very glaring that there could be a possible change of government.
Mm-hmm.
President John Dramani Mahama has been a journalist, and he is a journalist. And so when it comes to press freedom, it is something that I believe is ingrained in him. Nobody should be able to, teach him the role of the media in governance, because we all know that we are the fourth estate of government, and we exist to ensure that we push the government and make sure he does the right thing. Chapter 12 of the Constitution is clear, where it talks about the freedom of the media.
Mm-hmm.
We know that even in the press theories, where we have the authoritarian, the libertarian, the social responsibility, and that of Soviet communist, we are practicing more of libertarian and social responsibility type of press.
Mm-hmm.
But what it means is that in as much as you have the liberty to express yourself, to speak up, it is also incumbent on you to be socially responsible, to understand that in as much as you have the freedom to speak, it must come with a certain level of responsibility. And so I think that by now, every serial journalist like yourself, myself, should be able to know that this is my limitation in the midst of press freedom. Even in the United States of America, where they are practicing libertarian, I'm sure that Donald Trump, in his tag of, trying to give some, well astute media houses as fake media houses, it is even giving them a certain setup. So CNNs and the BBCs and the like, they are now setting up and making sure that perhaps they could have been doing certain things that would have slided, but now you cannot just do it anyhow. So when you come to Ghana, there have been a lot of expansion. In fact, if you look at the influence of the new media, which also was very instrumental in the projection of John Dramani Mahama, because if you look at the demography, we had a lot of youthful population on the social media, and the NDC was able to take advantage of the social media to project their candidate John Dramani Mahama. So if you look at the aftermath of the elections, we have realized a certain leverage of proactiveness, responsiveness from this particular government, where virtually almost everybody is trying to be very active and accountable on social media, whether TikTok, Facebook, however you want to call it. They are, because they realize that for us to be able to connect to the modern digital native, we need to be very active on social media. Unlike previously, where you find few government agencies that were so much active, it is not the case now. We find John Dramani Mahama's government very active, very responsive, and quick to condemn certain acts. For the first time, we have a president who is ready to warn the military and the security, saying that, look, you dare not touch a journalist. And to that extent, when recently when some military guys attacked a journalist, we saw what happened. You know, he had to warn them publicly. He had to condemn the act. And to that extent, the GJ, I think the military high command had to meet the GJ to, try as much as possible to understand how best they can work without any impediment. So if you are talking about press freedom under John Dramani Mahama, yes, there have been certain packets of, attacks on journalists. I mean, during the recent Ablekuma elections, we are aware of how some journalists were being attacked. But even that, they were attacked by the NDC supporters. But it was quickly condemned. And then some pockets of security and military and reprisal, I don't want to say reprisal, some level of attacks from the security agencies. But I am saying that press freedom under John Dramani Mahama, my initial statement would be, it's been better so far. And we find a president who finds himself as a journalist condemning any acts of, attacks on a journalist who is just, prosecuting his, constitutional agenda.
Thank you very much, Nana. Now, speaking about the president and his area of training, he is a journalist, like you said. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of what we're going to discuss today, I was very impressed with his speech at the GJA. It was a sterling speech, but you've also mentioned that yes, he is actually taking steps to warn the military and everything like that. Is that enough, one would ask, to just warn the military, or do you think it should be a bit more, upfront with confronting the issue of attacks on the media, especially by state agencies?
Yeah, I get it. And, in Ghana, we've had situations where a leader speaks and flamboyantly we talk about it in the news or airwaves, and after that, nothing happens. And so I am thinking that because the president is so much burdened with a lot of social challenges which he has to solve, it is also incumbent on whoever the sector minister is to really, call for a stakeholder engagement and come out with a white paper. And that white paper would guide every security person and the journalist to know how to report issues that are related to security, and also for the military or the security agencies to understand that just like they are protecting the parliament, the judiciary, and the executive, they also have that responsibility to protect us. So I think that beyond the president talking about the fact that he is not enthused or happy about any attack on a journalist, I think that the sector minister should ensure that they come out, sooner than later, maybe a policy paper that would really guide the way we do our things, so that everybody will be at peace and nobody will be afraid when he's, trying to
multi-sectorial though, wouldn't you say? Because now we're dealing with the police, for instance. The other day we saw a policeman viciously attacking a person. So the police, for instance, will come under the Ministry of Interior, right? And the army is also complicit in this matter. We also see soldiers slapping journalists all around. So that will be under the Ministry of Defense. So that has to be a multi-sectorial.
Yes, that's where I call for the stakeholder engagement. Once they meet, so that at the end of the day, I'm sure they can present that white paper on how security and the journalists can work towards a better Ghana, other than seeing themselves as enemies. That when they are done, the encouragement will be for them to go together, jointly present that paper to the president, so that the president may or will have his final say.
All right. Nana, I want us to look at press freedom in 5 major areas. Right. And we're doing this with information from Reporters Without Borders, Reporters Sans Frontières. Now, we have to acknowledge for clarity that there hasn't been very current and accurate 2025 figures. Okay, so whatever we're looking at would not just be for 2025, it will be, for also the period preceding that. But let's look at this right now. And we're considering this under media landscape, for instance. Under media landscape, it says so much. I want us to focus on that last, the highlighted part. Reporters Sans Frontières goes on to, say all the flamboyant, in quotes, stuff about media in Ghana. But then it also says, however, measures are taken by the authorities to promote media pluralism. Let me take that again. However, measures taken by the authorities to promote media pluralism have favored in recent years the emergence of partisan media outlets launched by politicians. Let's focus on this a little bit, Nana. Touch on this one last sentence, please. Because what I'm seeing is that, yes, we do have an abundance of media outlets and everything, but what use are they if all they are doing is churning out political propaganda?
Well, that's the reason, of course. Like I said, our practicing of the press is basically libertarian and social responsibility. And so the Constitution is very clear that even when somebody desirous of setting up a media house cannot be stopped. And the Constitution is clear. Mm-hmm. The only difference is that it has to be regulated so that, we will not behave like we are living in a jungle. Mm-hmm. But the clarity is that if anybody decides to set up a media house or a paper or whatever, you cannot stop the person. But the challenge is that, unfortunately, the people holding forth for us are all politicians. And if you go back to even in the 90s, when Radio I was set up by Reku Brobe, because we knew that it was only the GBCs that were recognized by the JJ's government. And of course, JJ was afraid of, a liberal democracy, because if you allow more private entities, we know what could possibly be the case. And so it was very clear that he had to close Radio I. The 1995 Kumipreko demonstration, because it was more like a culture of silence. Until 1995, when we had, Joy FM coming into the scene. And even that, you needed to be a bit cautious. Mm-hmm. And so in 2000, after the elections, when through the then former president, who was the Attorney General, Adodankwa Akufo-Addo, was able to remove the criminal libel law, it was very clear that then the media pluralism was now in fruition. Mm-hmm. And so the clarity was that it also helped the businessmen, because Kufuor also came in to liberate the businessmen. And so we had a lot of businessmen also entering into the media space for whatever reasons, whether to market or whether to also, influence their dominance in the society or for whatever reason. So you realize that during the Kufuor era, we had a lot of media licenses being churned into the system. And because of Kufuor allowing the media to speak, most of the media houses were more pro-MPP. And it was something that the NDC also learned. So when they had opportunity to come back to power around 2012, they also, because the president of the day appoints the National Communication Authority boss.
Mm-hmm.
So through that, he also made sure that they liberate the licenses by giving more licenses to NDC affiliated businessmen or personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And so you realize that as we had the likes of Oman FM, Ash FM doing the bidding of MPP, we had Radio Gold, Daily Post, and the likes. Even now, Power FM, Radio XYZ, all of them becoming more of pro-NDC.
Yep.
And so the challenge came into force when we politicize who gets the lances.
Yes.
And so that is why it then becomes very difficult for the modern day media to really listen to what is factual, very objective, without any bias lenses. And so the challenge had been we allow the politician to take over, because now the frequency, which of course, if you look at the normal amount that you need to set up a media house, right now as we speak, some people are buying it in dollars, which is not supposed to be the case. And you wonder why somebody may invest maybe old currency, 20 billion, to buy a frequency. What has he, seen in the media landscape? It was through that was where the birth of more citizen journalism came into fruition, because the people realized that the traditional media were so biased, not objective, were aligned. And so the challenge was that, okay, if we are able to talk on social media, as for that, Mark Zuckerberg will not even restrict me. So I can speak what I think is real. And that is how come the new media began to take over from the traditional media. And so now, now the issue of even fake news has become one of the most dominant discussions in our media landscape. The issue of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, the issue of verification, the issue of fact-checking before you speak, and the fact that the citizens on social media are even questioning and critiquing the works of traditional media or so-called professional journalists. Yep. It does tell you that in the midst of all the distortions by some politically aligned media houses, we still have some people in the media space or the social media who are citizen journalists also coming out with some of the news to balance the case. Some of them are not true, but of course, we still find a situation where people want to fact check each other.
We will come there. We will discuss that in itself, the new media and its impact, and it's how to control it. Because I don't like using the word control, especially when it comes to the media. I don't want control, but we have to regulate, I guess is the word, right? So that it deals with the issue of false news and all of that. But so let's put that on the side burner. We'll come back to this. But I want us to go a little bit into this. How do we find our way as a citizenry among all this mishmash of, politically biased news inflow? This is what I mean. We have on one side the opposition allied stations in a state of perpetual cynicism. Even if the government does something good, they don't see it. And then on the other hand, we have the government aligned media touting everything they do as positive, even if they're not doing it. How do we as the citizens find our way among all these? How do we choose what media to trust?
Well, it's a very difficult question, but I would attempt to try. The challenge is, and also I think the good aspect is that now you find a lot of Ghanaians going to school. comparatively. And so you find people who are able to read for themselves, learn for themselves without any external influence. I am saying this because you find somebody saying that I'm not going to listen to this media house because we know them. A typical case is in Ashanti region. In the olden days, you could have been on perhaps a known MPP media house. You could have said anything for people to believe you. But you can even find an MPP sympathizer telling you that I am an MPP person, but I will not listen to maybe Woon to Me or Ash FM because they are too biased. I want to listen to diversity. And so, I mean, my case, for example, in Shre FM, it's an independent media house. But what was the challenge? The challenge was that you find a journalist like myself trying to do my work professionally. And once you're doing your work professionally, it may not be aligned to the values and the philosophies of an MPP aligned person, especially when you are doing it in an MPP dominated space.
Yeah.
So what happened? There will be a lot of backstabbing and lies and distortions and disinformation against anybody who attempts to be professional. But in the midst of all those challenges, you realize that I was able to, or the media house was able to get credible on negotiated audience who are ready to balance between what they have heard and then the truth. So I believe that some media houses are really doing their best. And I think that anybody who is a media friend or somebody who relies on media for information by now generally understands that, yes, we know which ones are truly working independently and those ones that are aligned politically. So I'm not sure that with the current educational system and the fact that people are going to school, people are educated, majority of them are not able to know what is factual, what is an opinion, and what is a fact. Things are not all 100% right, but I think that it is better comparatively to what we had experienced maybe some 5 or 10 years ago.
Interesting. And I guess the sum of it is that it's up to us, the consumers of news, to push back, I guess, right? If you hear something that doesn't really line up, you push back on it,
Yeah.
And hey, we have the means to do that, calling and all of that. And I've seen a lot of that also happening.
Yeah.
And I thank you very much. Let's look at the second pillar of our discussion today, the political context, right?
Okay.
And in that piece, I want us again to focus on the highlighted part. Okay, so I read, a third of the country's media outlets are owned by politicians. Still on the same case, really and truly.
Yeah.
This is, we're taking it into a broader context.
Yeah.
So it's owned by politicians or people with ties to the leading political parties in plural. And the content they produce is largely partisan. Furthermore, the government chooses the National Media Commission's members, although it has little to no influence over the appointment of those in charge of privately owned media outlets. You have already hinted on this. The government's influence in, making sure how licenses are operated and all that. You already have hinted on that. But expand on this for me, please.
Yeah. So it's very clear. I think that their research is apt and it is really creating a lot of problems. I can tell you the number of frequencies that are owned by MPP supporters and personality, same like NDC supporters and personality. Right now in Ghana, you can make mention of Woon to Me, Oman FM, and even some independent, so-called independent media houses. You know by the way they handle things as politically aligned. I don't want to mention many names. Same thing like Radio Gold. And let me tell you, I'm sure you know the history of Capital Radio. Now, because of the tag, Capital Radio now needed to, change their style of, their house style, their values. They didn't want to enter into any politics because of what they had gone through during the MPP era. And we also find a situation where, as we speak, the NDC is also using, their powers. I mean, their powers. When I say powers, it is within the law to also handle certain media houses that is deemed to be affiliated to MPP. Just like how Radio Gold was really handled during the MPP era. And that is the problem.
I think that, I'm sorry to truncate your thought, but I think that unlike, just like you said, the shutting down of Radio Gold and all of that, and I don't want to go too deeply into that, but in this case, in this government, we did see President Mahama actually asking the communications minister to give stations like Wuntumi, which is obviously NPP, a second chance and so on. It's not quite the same, is it?
No, I think that it is also because of the fact that President John Dramani Mahama was talking about resets. And so even when you do certain things and you find the citizens also lambasting you, that look, you cannot, just because you have the power to do just anything, then you have to be cautious, because in as much as you want to reset, people must see that you are not doing what certain people did, and it brought them to where now they are crying foul and crying to be heard. And so you see, the point is that the Constitution is clear. Article 6 of the Constitution, which talks about the executive, Article 8 of the Constitution, which talks about the executive. It is clear that when you read, I think Article 57 clause 6, it talks about the fact that, I think 57.1 or something thereabout, it talks about the fact that anything that the minister does, anything that the minister does is deemed to be coming from the president. And so, because it is the president that gives the minister the authority. So if the minister pronounces anything, you are representing the president. And so the Minister of Communication is the president's representative at the communication ministry. So when Sam George says anything, we cannot take it on a face value. It will be deemed to have been coming from the president. So the president, you will speak on behalf of the president. And so today, people are understanding that you have a bigger role. Unfortunately, the reality is that it is the politicians that have the money. They have the funds. They can issue dollars. The ordinary citizen cannot have an access to a frequency now. It will be few. Only few businessmen can have access to the frequency. And I can tell you, if this agency that did this wonderful job, they are going back into the NCA to engage them on who owns what frequency, I can tell you about 70 to 80% will be owned by the NDC and MPP influencers or politicians. And so it becomes, and even more. So it becomes very difficult when we want to discuss some of these issues. Because, for example, Radio XYZ, Wezo TV, they are doing it, but it is NDC. They are there now because NDC had made them more popular. Come to Wuntumi, MPP made them popular. And so it is very difficult now. But the reality is that so far as the politicians are now having the power and the influence to maneuver to get more of the licenses, it then becomes very difficult for the few credible radio houses or media houses to really break through. But I think that in the midst of all the turmoil, people still trust the credible media houses, my brother.
Okay, so let me go to the first part, which is not highlighted also, because something just caught my attention, right? Although Ghana is considered the regional model of democratic stability, journalists have experienced growing pressures in recent years to protect their jobs. This is where I want us to focus. To protect their jobs and their security, they have increasingly resorted to self-sponsorship as the government has been self-intolerant of criticism. That's another question altogether, whether the government is intolerant of criticism and the journalist.
That is true. I mean, myself, I have had what we call what Edward Herman and Noam Chomsky Quen, the filters of propaganda, the filters. And one of them was organized flag, where there's a coordinated attack on any journalist who want to speak the truth to power. And so that coordination means that you have to speak to a favor. I mean, just last year, the MPP guys were attacking me and tagging me as NDC. Recently, you find many NDC guys attacking me as MPP. Why? Because they feel that you are supposed to work for them. And so sometimes if you are not bold enough, that is where the issue of self-censorship comes in.
Yeah.
So it is not government censored, but you look at the implication of whatever you want to say and the backlash that you are likely to receive, then you begin to self-censor yourself and just say that, well, I don't want to say this thing. I don't want to say the obvious truth. I don't want to say these things for people to attack or insult me.
Or I will say it in a certain way.
I will say it in a certain way.
And, not like
exactly.
Basically deal with power with kid gloves, basically.
And it is same. I mean, all of us, we do self-censorship. And when we're talking about self-censorship, I mean, you have to apply common sense because we are communal in nature. Somebody knows you somewhere, and you cannot trust anybody. You could have somebody who says that, I know Kwesi stays at Bantima. He comes home at 8 o'clock. I can give you the lead. And things can happen. Yeah. I've had situations where I had to be given a different place to sleep for over 1 month because of some of these kind of challenges, because you realize that there are people who are plotting to, harm you.
And also against your family, Nana, because what I've noticed is that apart from the people actually physically harming you, the trend that I'm noticing in Ghana is also setting certain elements on social media to completely denigrate you, including saying nasty things about your family.
Exactly. And it's true. For me, I'm a living example to some of these things. I've experienced a lot of attacks, insults, defamation, and all those things. Just that by the grace of God, we are stronger in spirit. And so some of these things, we take it in our strides and we do not, push too much because we are focused. And I always say that if you're doing anything that you don't encounter these kind of challenges, means you are not doing anything. You should get to the level as a journalist where you are being insulted and attacked for doing what is right. And
that's true. I mean, that's true to an extent. But I'm looking at somebody like Komla Dumo of Blessed. I never heard anybody insult Komla Dumo. I never heard anybody, or maybe it was a different era. Maybe we can.
Yes, because it was little of social media. You understand?
Yeah, generally speaking, and even Kwadwo Jantuah before he joined the NPP. To be honest with you,
yes, you look at that era.
Against him at all until
look at that. Yes, look at that era. That era was less social media. And so you for the traditional media, we choose when to let you come in. There are times we can decide to say that today we are not picking any calls. And so even when somebody wanted to insult Kwadwo Jantuah, the producers can limit it.
Yeah,
they will ask the questions and why is the intention? Okay, I want to come on Ras show. Okay, what's your name? Where are you calling from? This, that. So the producers were able to manage certain.
You mean the profile, the callers in the back?
The profile.
Yes,
I mean sometimes you know that for this person on Kenyans are same, and so. Culture. On Kenyans are same. So yes, on Kenyans are same. So if you're not very, very careful, then
which part of Ghana?
Yeah, who may be your friend be saying that
your possible political affiliation.
Yes. So at that time, we say it was not as interactive like the new media. Because as for the new media, when you are done speaking as Ras, G8 News Now, somebody will just attack you on social media. If you didn't allow him to speak, he knows how to tag you.
That's another way of attacking you.
Yes, and tagging you and getting his people to come and insult you for nothing. I mean, a recent case was when I talked about the fact that Dr. Bawumia must show leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Took it, insulted, attacked me, lied against my personality. If Joshua Sinega also said same. And you know, that coordinated attack, all because you touched a certain person that they feel that that person is a demigod. So the reality is that it is a difficult terrain, but self-censorship is more of common sense. That if you are going to say it,
some of it is needed, I guess, is what you were saying. A little bit of that is needed for your own.
Yeah. Very. And that is why you move in your intimate for your bush and phone chere. Intimate more than we are mundi matem. Because one share crano, bimpe was no crano, or Chanko crano, o day, o bar now, we hear a crack or to swap. When he to obey do Iratama could do math when he sent it become. So, I mean, self-censorship is a necessity. Looking at the temperature of, the top political discourse in the country.
Okay, now let's go to the third pillar, legal framework.
Right.
All right. So, Reporters Without Borders says the Right to Information Act passed in 2019 authorizes journalists to demand information of national interest. However, a clause in the law allows a fee to be charged if the information is requested in a language other than English, a provision used to prevent journalists from accessing the information they seek. Reporters Sans Frontier, I want to correct something real quick, please, before I have Nana come in.
No
I don't think that provision is used to prevent journalists from accessing the information they seek. I just think it's a stupid aspect of that law, right? Why do I say this? I don't think that 3/4 of the active journalists in Ghana can read or write in any Ghanaian language. So when I'm looking at people seeking information, unless of course we're talking about maybe in digital formats like audio and so on.
Yes.
Then we are speaking that language. But otherwise, when it comes to the written one, I don't think that's the issue. But however, let me have you react to this quickly, please. Just leave that part alone and just attack the main issue there for me. That law, first of all, is functioning. How easy is it to get information from the sources that you should get them from? How easy is it to even get to a party official as a non-mainstream platform like ours, for instance?
Yeah.
Right. And how is this impacting the deliverance or the delivery of media or media material to the public?
I think that naturally Ghanaians are not accountable enough. We live in that secretive culture where we feel that the way we behave in the house should be same when we come to public, when we are serving in the public. And so the RTI bill was seeking to enhance the issue of accountability and probity. Unfortunately, we are living in a system where the system itself that created those guidelines or rules will frustrate you based on how they feel about those issues. But elsewhere, they will push you to come out with those kind of documents. Of course, there are laws. When you submit your intention, you have 14 days, and if they don't do it, there are penalties and all those stuff. But you see, the point is that yes, there are only few media houses and individuals who have been able to apply the RTI and gotten certain answers. We've had situations where some institutions were fined, including security and other, even Parliament House and even government, of their inability to make certain documents accessible. And so the challenge is that because some Ghanaians naturally are born bad, our issue of trying to come out with a certain document or certain public information or certain public interest information, it becomes wobble. And so the RTI bill was supposed to help us. As we speak, it is there, it can be activated, but sometimes the frustrations that you go through, and that is why most of the media houses would want to find the unconventional means to get those kind of documents. Because if I have to just frustrate myself throughout the process of waiting maybe 2 weeks or whatever to get a document, perhaps if I begin to speak based on the information that I have, it will automatically generate a certain discourse to push certain people to start coming out with certain documents. Look at what is happening between Manasseh Azuri and that of OSP.
Yes.
Now OSP says that we have been able to save about 2-point-something billion Ghana cedis. Manasseh says it is not like that, and so you see the back and forth. Based on that, now the OSP decide to bring documents, and Manasseh decide to also bring documents, and people are also sharing documents. So I think that the conventional way of accessing information through the RTI bill, it could be sometimes bureaucratic and cumbersome, and so people would decide to use this crook method, so-called, to get those information. And I think that unconventional means really gets the results than the conventional means. Because if a soldier decides to do anything, now one of the unconventional means will be you're able to get a document that we think it was secretive. Because what happens today, you bring the document, somebody gets it and snap it and push it straight forward without waiting for anybody. And now we have phones, cameras, videos. People can just capture and push it. So by the time you are denying, somebody already have it. It is in the social media. So it is very difficult for you to lie. Thank God for social media. Thank God for citizen journalism. And now we are able to know a lot of, look at what recently happened during the military recruitment processes. Imagine we didn't have anything social media. I am sure they would have lied. I am sure they could have, tried to bottleneck this information. But today, what happened? Based on the fact that people started talking about it, people were really aggressive. People were really angry about the way the military, were handling recruits. Based on that, look at what has happened aftermath. And so the point is that RTI is good. It has to ensure transparency, but the challenge is the bureaucracy, and that is why I would choose the unconventional means than the conventional means.
Yo, Nana, thank you. Now, Yanka, Yanfa Yininche, Bibiasika, so kakra.
Right.
Because even in your introduction, you introduced the media as a fourth estate, but there's a marked difference between that so-called fourth estate and the three other estates. The three other estates are paid with taxpayers' money. They are funded with taxpayers' money. They are protected, like you indicated, by taxpayer money. Whereas when it comes to the fourth estate, not so much. And then we're struggling to keep on our feet. Now, the government resources that should also be spread around is also geared towards mainstream, so-called, and politically recognized institutions, leaving the wider media on its own. Now, why do we even have a school of journalism, for instance, if we only have so many media outlets that can absorb only a few of them, and everybody else is trying to set something up? And mind you, some of these ones were even actually set up by people who use their own resources, right, before they would get any funding at some point. Let's go to the economic context now. It says state-owned, on the other hand, are awarded government advertising contracts and are paid in exchange for publishing information. Non-transparent and unfair procedures are used to allocate state advertising. You have had a good stint with a very well-known media house in Ghana. How much can you tell us about this?
Well, I think that it is true. Generally, journalists are not being paid well. It's only few corporate houses, and it's even in the corporate media houses, it depends on your value. So you find that there's a salary gap between the few people who may be paid well and majority of the people who are in the same media house. It is really a challenge. And I know some media houses that are not being paid for almost 2 years, but they are working. And that is why there's a challenge with professionalism, because you cannot tell a hungry journalist to be professional. The person must survive.
Yeah.
Because we have been into that situation before. Situation where you come, you work, people are hearing you and praising you, people are, giving you all the hype, and then you go home hungry. We've experienced those situations before. I mean, there have been situations where you are working, and at the end of the month, you just receive a meager amount.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, majority of the media houses in Ghana do not have a proper return on their income. And henceforth, the journalists working in those media houses resort to ways and means to survive. And that is why they align with political parties. It's about, let me affiliate with maybe MPP, MP, or NDC MP, so that when I begin to hide the person, perhaps, who knows, we'll be able to sort me
even
out.
outside of the political context. And
Yes,
I've also experienced a situation where I don't want to mention the name of the media house because obviously, but I went with this, I had a stint with these people where they would get up in the morning and scout for where there are events that are more likely to what's the word, to bring forth solid, right? I mean, so there are 5 events going on. We're showing all of them. Okay, there's some riot going on somewhere because some people are not happy about something. How is that going to benefit me? And that Chartered Bank is having an event, a corporate event at the City Hotel with some, dinner and chops and some fine people coming. There's very likely to be some solid over there, or at least some chop over there. I'd rather go over there than go cover the riot. That's what I'm saying. Have you experienced that also?
It has happened every day, every time. And I don't blame them. The honest truth is that I don't blame them, because I feel that the system has created that situation. And you see, society has a certain perception about a journalist, especially when you are seen to be talking and being influential. And so for me, editors want to survive, reporters want to survive. And so when they go for any program and that program will not give them any traction, any amount, there's a way they even would give your news.
Yes.
That premium.
Yes.
Yes, there's a way that they give premium to your news.
All right. Now let's move on because of time, and we still have a couple. We have 2 more pillars to look at, and
no problem.
A suggestion that RSF is giving to President.
No problem.
But let's move on to the next one, which is the socio-cultural context.
Yes.
And with that, let me read that part that's relevant to our discussion right now. So other topics such as culture and religion can be covered freely without. This is short, so let me read right from the top. It says journalists investigating environmental issues. And let me salute my brother Erastus Asaredonko. For what you're doing.
It's not easy.
Yes. And I know a few others. So Himi Teria, I think Bediakon, a few others are really doing some very good work for the environment. We salute our colleagues. So it says journalists investigating environmental issues, particularly mining or salt extraction, are particularly targeted by physical attacks, sometimes resulting in serious injuries. Other topics such as culture and religion can be covered freely without particular difficulty. Now, when I read this, it worries me a little bit, because it's like, okay, let's not discuss the things that matter. Let's discuss the things that don't really matter. From where I see, that's how I see it.
It is true. I mean, if you look at Ohimin Teria, you say Abonama Nadji to say Nitia and Tiania.
Oh,
yeah, I'm attacking last year. Ne won shed Anton. Ne won shed Anton. Niti to be a drop and a bar. It's so painful. It's to be I mean, it's not easy. Erastus. To be a never say or Babru Chimpo.
I don't know where that is carried from, because the kind of people on your more face, are very dangerous people.
No, very, very. Now, a soldier who is supposed to protect you, is protecting the Galamseyes.
Yeah.
What do I say? And sometimes it is a war. Sometimes the last event
are operating from higher command.
Yes.
So you as a citizen, how do you even feel protected? Yourself? Because you don't really even know where the command is going to come from. You don't know the kingpins or all of them, right? It could be somebody who's related to the minister for kind of that. And they're going to be giving. What would that be person with channel?
And they are so deadly people. They will kill you. I mean, Erastus, recent one, luckily, and then I think was it Newmont or one of the big mining firms. Their car was passing by. That was the only savior. Other than that, they would have killed the team in the bush and buried them, and nothing will happen. And that's how dangerous it is when you want to discuss issues of mining, salt. Look at what happened at Adan. The issue with McDan. And the journalist who was maimed and later on passed away.
Yeah.
And so you see, and the big people who are into these things have the influence. They have the guns. They buy the people. They hire the macho men. And you are not a macho man. You are only trying to expose the rot in the system, and that becomes a harm. And that is where sometimes even the self-censorship comes in. So sometimes you just want to stay neutral and do all those ones that would generally be likable by the people, other than being radical, trying to expose things that really are the lifeline of somebody destroying the environment, because you know that by destroying the environment, he can buy a lot, do a lot. Nobody cares because he has the money. And you are trying to let the person stop. It is not easy, my brother. It is not easy at all.
Interesting. Now let's look at the last pillar before we go to that advice that RSF has for John Mahama. And I'm going to read all of this. Safety, general safety of journalists. So journalist safety has seriously deteriorated in recent years. Journalists' work is frequently obstructed, most often due to studios being verbally and physically attacked during live broadcast, and journalists being assaulted while they are on air. Most cases of police violence against journalists are not penalized. The same goes for murders of journalists. 6 years after the brutal death of investigative journalist Ahmed Hussein Swale, the investigation has ground to a halt. President John Dramani Mahama, elected in December 2024, has pledged to reopen it. And as I stated from the beginning, the information from RSF is not current, so to speak.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So that should be taken into context, because we know that a lot of these things that are being reported, we know where they're coming from. We know where journalists were attacked or all of that while they were live on there. We know all these things happen, and it wasn't on Mahama, so we need to make that. All right. But all that said, though, what's your general reaction to this? And I will ask you another question on the second part regarding Ahmed Swale. So you may leave that out for now.
I think journalists generally are being cautious. In fact, you need to have a second heart, more like a lion heart, to survive. Because sometimes it may not be even government sponsored. It may be supporter sponsored. I am not sure Dr. Baumia asked anybody to attack me for expressing my view. But I know that it is coming from the supporters, who some of them may be influential, who may try to induce certain people to attack you. Because in the midst of all those things, you find people who are closer to Dr. Baumia telling me that don't mind them. We have not sanctioned anybody to do that. And yet, you find the organized, coordinated attack on people's personality. In that case,
Nana, would be that, why then don't they just issue a statement?
I agree. So that's why I say that sometimes the hypocrisy aspect is, when I say, I am not the person responsible for the attack on Kwesi, but I am keeping quiet. And so you have a valid point.
And I'm calling you, don't mind the guy that slapped you around. but it's very likely that he's going to come back and slap you again. And I'm not saying nothing about it.
That's hypocrisy. And that's hypocrisy. That's hypocrisy for me. But that's the point. I mean, the points are very clear that journalists fear. Journalists are afraid. And I can tell you, most journalists who started well, and today when you are talking to them, they will tell you that, look, we are all now protecting ourselves and our families. Because in Ghana, if you kill yourself for Ghana, nothing useful will come out from it. You understand? Okay. And let me break this news. Can you imagine recently when some journalists followed the EPA team to certain mining site on their way, they had accident? Can you believe that they have been neglected? I'm breaking this news, and this week we'll be working on that. The people who were on an assignment to serve the nation, after the initial, we are sorry, they visited, now the journalists would have to cough out to take care of themselves. And this is the point. Why should a journalist who was serving the government, EPA, a journalist had an accident and it was because of your duty and they feel neglected? So the next time you come in and you want a journalist to support your agenda, do you think that I would release a journalist or I'll be supporting you? So this is a...
Do you think, sir, under such circumstances, no, maybe before a media house releases journalists to go on an operation like that, before multimedia releases Erastus Asaridonko to go with the team over there, or whatever, no, there should be a clear understanding that the security of these journalists are in their hands. Because right now, I don't think there's any framework that says that any agency per se should take care of these journalists. Am I right? Otherwise,
I get it. Yeah, it is true. It is true. It is true. I think multimedia does it, making sure that once you are picking any of our journalists, make sure you protect the person. Recently, we went to Asanko mines because some community members had attacked some of their machines, and we went there. But we went there with assurance from the security personnel. They escorted us. They made sure that we are safe. When we landed on most of the places where they had caused the damages, we were protected. And I was the leader, and I made sure that everybody was safe. The vehicle, the guidance, everything, till everybody eventually, when we came back to Kumasi. But it doesn't normally happen. And I think that I agree with you. Maybe the media house should be extra vigilant and demand more, other than solid womanty. No, it doesn't work like that.
In other places, I know that the journalists are insured, right? CNN is not going to send their reporters to Gaza without some type of assurance for them and their family and all of that. Now, let's look at the second part of this thing. Ahmed Swale, President made it a topical issue when he was campaigning. How much work have you seen being done to get back on that case and to make sure that everything is lined up?
I think I'm highly disappointed with the way the state is handling these issues. Because you see, in Ghana, it appears that you can be killed and nothing will happen. I mean, if you are doing proper adoption, you should be able to, you should be able to pick the pieces together by now. Because it cannot happen that there was a journalist, there was a politician who was loud, and after everything, nothing happens. And as we speak, I mean, potentially, he could be a candidate. I'm not showing that he had made it, but certain utterances elsewhere where you live, you know that any person that had said anything related to the death of this person would have been in under investigation. But unfortunately, in Ghana, we just talk about it. Once the person is buried, we will just drag it. See an issue of what do you call it? A member of parliament, Dankwa, JB Danka, who was murdered, and it closed over whatever years. Nothing has happened. And so I think I think that Ahmed Swale, I'm not impressed so far, and I'm not impressed with what even this current regime, is doing regarding the death. I want more proactiveness. Something must happen because our brother was working for the betterment of this country, my brother.
Thank you, Nana. Now, before we go, let's look at the advice that RSF has for President Mahama and give me your take on it. The first one, it says, create a safer, more protective environment for journalists, particularly those covering environmental issues, by ending intimidation and attacks on journalists while they're working.
Yeah.
How do you propose the government can do this?
I think it's clear. The fact is that journalists like Erastus or Himin TV must be protected. The state must consciously protect them. The national security must protect them. You understand? Because, I mean, it's not easy. These sensitive cases like this, why is it that when the minister is going for those kind of, what do you call it? When he's going for those visits or whatever, he's being protected with all sort of security apparatus. And then the journalist who is bringing the stories out to help the government is not protected. The fourth estate is not protected. I think that I agree with them that these sensitive issues, they need special security.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, the second point, it says promote media independence by limiting the possibility for politicians to be majority shareholders or owners of media outlets. A third of the country's media outlets are owned by politicians or by people who have ties to, we already explored that. I so much support that point.
Yeah.
I think this is something we should launch a massive campaign on. But let me hear you.
I agree. I mean, I agree. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
No, that's
unfortunately. Yeah, it's not going to happen because a woman.
Never say never, because I believe in people power. I believe in people power, and I believe that at least we have we have comparatively a more listening government, if not for anything, where we can more. And then also President Mahama being a media professional, I think we'll understand that a lot more. I think this is our best.
Well, for me,
yes.
Well, for me, I think that the influx of new media is balancing it. So there could be a situation where the government can issue 100% licenses to politically affiliated people. We don't care. The new media alone is enough to balance the equation. And so you can be a politician, fine, but the new media would expose you.
I hear you. Okay, but you know that these people are also branching into the new media also. I heard Vuntu the other time saying, I have 5 radio stations, I have 3 online stations. So they actually are branching into the media.
Yes, bloggers be breaching.
And you perform one with a phone in Kwan, but they will nullify everything you are saying.
Yeah, don't make Chili Jonas money. You know, do matter.
I'm not a very big fan of Chili Jonas. I am not a fan of that guy. He does not.
Me either.
But let me give you a quick example before we go to the third point, though. You remember when the former Western Region Minister said Kenke costs 7 cedis or something like that?
Yes.
And then all somebody had to do was take a phone and go to the spot and say, "Hey, mom, how much does your Kenke cost?" The woman says 5 cedis. You know, they completely nullified all that.
Yes,
all right, it's a
different of the new media.
All right. Okay. Now the third part, it says remove fee access for information requests.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
I agree. I mean, information access there. Government must sponsor it.
If they charge fees in part, it's not on somebody who's trying to get information in the local language of all things.
Now, I mean, that you identify the most spoken languages, which you've already done. You understand? Say Ga, in Chi, in Hausa, you can do that. And AI is able to help some of these things. You understand? You can get AI to quickly translate all these things into Chi or Hausa or French or whatever. And so I don't see the difficulty here, especially when we are in the
process ChatGPT. So they
technology world.
All right. Now the fourth point is that redistribute state advertising transparently and fairly to improve journalist salaries. I so much support this also, Nana. But what's your reaction?
I do support it, but the difficulty is that that normally don't happen because most businessmen want to align with the government of the day. And so, for example, now that we have NDC, you are likely to find perhaps MTN, Vodafone, Airtel sponsoring maybe Radio XYZ or Wezo TV, just because they are afraid that anything can happen. It is a good point, but the devil is in the details.
But again, like I said, citizen power, right? Because we can bring this to parliament. But I personally don't know how media, all that is distributed. And I don't know how or whatever, right? Where I say. But that's another thing I'll call you on another day.
Yes.
Ghanaian, there are two topics I may treat you. Apart from this,
any problem.
Let's look at the new media in totality.
Any problem.
And I also want us to look at Ghanaian media presence outside of Ghana. So these are two interviews I want you to promise our viewers.
I promise. Any choice.
Thank you very much. But let's finish today's discussion. The next one, who your points now on the redistribution?
Yeah, I'm done with that.
Okay, all right. And then it says end impunity for crimes against journalists by systematically. Nishu, please take the banner off so I can read the full thing. Thank you. By systematically doing what? Opening investigations to prosecute the perpetrators. That's a no-brainer, if you ask me. But let me get your reaction, Nana.
I mean, that's key, because they need to understand that without the media, things would have been haphazard. Without the media, the politician will keep on messing up the system. Thank God for the media. Other than that, nobody would have been able to scrutinize the system. And that's why we talk about the media states government triangle, the triangle. So the media is the liaison entity between governance and the citizens. So citizens rely on the media, government will rely on the media. So at every point in time, we need to ensure that as we are working, we are protected. You cannot beat me for just picking something that people want us to talk about. My crime is saying that the roads are bad. We are not getting good drinking water. Fix it for us. Why should you beat me? I don't think it's fair. And I think that our able president should be able to protect us the more beyond the talks.
Thank you very much, Nana. Yadasipi and Obre my end. But me fear. And for the last question, the mechanic.
Yes.
I will be say Osi Ufi MPP Ufi Insha FM because of NPP pressure. Mankind story no info because I don't even trust that source, to be honest.
Yeah.
But let's hear it from the champion's own mouth. Why, oh gracious, why, Nana Jantuah, did you decide to leave Insha FM at this point when your voice is so much needed?
Yeah. Kwesi, asema okan de medase. De tiani se enye nanu anam nim se nipa domisa. Kwesi se bi uni aketua ne me. Then time na ye show bomu no. Mo so mo kai mo amotete ye bi ho on how we analyze issues maturely and all those things. Your upbringing has always been speaking for the people. I went to Insha FM around 2019. I have served for 5 good years. In fact, Nanka, before set time no kre babe sono, Nanka umenya Nanka me another contract till 2030. In fact, enya multimedia ne pamo me. Fact, and yes, I was treated badly at multimedia. Another fact, they had wished I stay till 2030 plus. But I think, sir, 5 years had been enough for me over there. I think, sir, academics and so be we any other business engagement. The multimedia no, a pressure until you are not able to do other things that would also give you some certain leverage of income. Until for me, I think 5 years was enough for me. Say, meet me, I can say, I thank you for this platform and I want to take other challenges. and more be answer. In fact, multimedia nya baby a government betimi a show be ontimi. One of the things I know they say no government can command multimedia say you way through one and say you way through for 5 years. Not in fact they will protect.
They protect and multimedia nakasano. They thrive because of the balance. If you ask me, there are certain journalists. For instance, oh, journalists who are NPP, but within the same organization, honestly, NDC. So I think that but
okay. No. And but first, my bread, and say so medroom money zone. What do I say? Because you see, when you're dealing with Nasi can come one. And see, I'm not saying, say, in fact, I was one of the few people who were paid well.
Are you saying you're waiting to be poached by a higher bidder? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, very possible. As we speak, there are five strong media houses who are bidding.
Now, so what bread there? Then why are you going to another media house?
My bread multimedia bread no.
Okay.
Because you see, multimedia no. Their structures are when you are their super eye and as a star now. Ultimately, baby. What do I say? A year, minia can come bodua. On the oba pure FM, you will tell me to quite kakra, a jirigo kakra, but what multimedia won't just a chance, no.
I see.
But Bema, when you share to about Kumas, be to me.
No, be to say, Ubenya appointment. Government appointment be and a person a tune fee honor when I will resign Baako you be one and Jantuah.
That's the last thing. I will never take any appointment from NDC government. I don't want to. I don't like it. I'm a professional person at my level with PhD, I can consult for any government. If the government can hire my services to consult, but the last thing I met Japan say MPP or NDC, I can never say never. But for now, I see myself more in the media, speaking for people. And so I should be in the media for the next 10 years. All things be equal. I should be in the media for the next 10 years. And I can assure my listeners to say, by January, they are likely to see me coming back to the media, but not with multimedia.
Yo. Said there be assembly the Nina and Watano. Najan tried that was Namin Shaw, Neobra, when your mind any insights. What you would pop up every time you speak is very obvious that you are somebody who applies wisdom to your thought, to whatever you say. Yamin Shao, like I said, to own the car, promising.
Four crown mayama.
Mate.
4 crown mayama. The other can be a me one time. And then me poor church and I'm saying, Ras, the mini penny from mini choice. It's offer me a mid dream maker, and I'm saying, hey, there be. And me dancing so near Queen. This is a big platform. We'll all push it. Celebrate uncle for better. Yamin should be an Omumuti.
Yamin Shaw, Susanana, Kwadwo Jantuah, a broadcaster and also media analyst. You're the CP for the site, the insights and the. Yeah, but caught your second interview. So really quick, yeah, but go straight to the second interview because the guest has been in the green room for a very long time. So we will not waste too much time. We'll go for a very quick commercial break. Yeah, straight to our second interview for the day. Please stay.